In the second video of our series on socialist feminism, we will now explore third worldist theory on the subject, after we have covered the basics in the previous video. But before we continue, please read the original article that this video series is based on, which is linked in the description below. The world has drastically changed since the times of Marx and Engels. The first world proletariat is no longer the main victim of capitalism. To be precise, it has become complacent with the new situation in which most exploitation happens in the third world. And first world workers are being bribed with a ridiculous and unsustainable level of material wealth in exchange for not fighting against the system. In light of this current situation, it is necessary to analyze the conditions of first world and third world women separately, for they are not the same. Let's start with women in the third world. They are being exploited by capitalism in the traditional sense, and so this means that most of Engels' theories, which we covered in the previous video, are most applicable here. The third world itself, however, does not pose a consistent picture. Imperialist interests make it so that third world countries are not allowed to fully industrialize. This way, they are forced to sell their natural resources cheaply to the imperialist countries and to buy expensive manufactured goods from them in return. In the rural and more traditional areas of these countries, women suffer from pre-capitalist oppression. They are bound to the domestic sphere and being deprived of equal rights. It's exactly these patriarchal mechanisms of individual marriage that Engels described that are at fault here. Because imperialism doesn't allow these countries to industrialize, women suffer from these backward conditions. In the industrialized urban areas, their gendered oppression is less pronounced because they are part of the workforce. Patriarchal oppression, however, is still there and sexist biases are still being used to pay them lower wages than their male colleagues. Therefore, even though they enjoy a little bit more equality, they still belong to the most exploited groups on Earth. It's also important to mention that they are the main victims of the global sex industry. We will talk about this in more detail in the next video. In the first world, women enjoy a much higher level of equality. That's the result of the accumulation of wealth from the third world. Because the exploitation takes mainly place in the third world, there is no need for capitalists to promote sexist biases anymore in order to lower women's wages. There is enough money that can be earned. Women no longer have to rely on their husbands to survive. Therefore, they do enjoy almost the same social mobility that men do. The gender-based oppression is gradually disappearing, or becoming less obvious, due to the economic assimilation of first world men and women. We see gender equality in the first world is being paid for by the exploitation of the third world. The discrimination of women in the first world that is left is mainly a residual effect of the patriarchal oppression in the past. Of course, that is not to say that first world women enjoy real equality. Their oppression is as shameful as the oppression of any woman. But it's a fact that the conditions of third world women are objectively more severe. We must also keep in mind that due to their higher standard of living, first world women have a material interest in the exploitation of the third world, and therefore also in the miserable situation that third world women have to endure. In no way do we want to demonize first world women or first world people in general. Yes, they benefit from the imperialist system, but it's not only greed that is responsible for their complacency. They are constantly being fed lies by the imperialist media outlets to believe in a distorted picture of the world. These lies do also cover up the real nature of gender oppression. We will talk about this in more detail in the next video.